Welcome to Wayne State University. We're in the Shaver Music Recital Hall here at the old main building, and we're here with the Wayne State University Big Jazz Band, our premier jazz ensemble in the jazz division here. On that first tune, you heard our pianist, Taylor Pearson, on piano, and our bassist, Mike Palazzolo, on bass. We want to thank Wayne State University. We want to thank our faculty and all of our students, as well as banddirector.com, for putting together this presentation this afternoon. What we're here to do today is talk a little bit about the Jazz Big Band, how to control it, how to write for it, how to prepare it for a performance that includes solos and ensemble sections that can demand a little different approach than what you might give to an orchestra or a symphony band. You know, one of the first things I'll point out very briefly is you'll notice when I counted off the band, I wasn't really conducting the band in a traditional sense. That being said, there are some specific things you want to be prepared for as a conductor. First of all, don't stand in front of the band with a conducting wand unless it's a rubato section, which is part of a lot of solo pieces these days. And then you do have to conduct in a more classical style for the band to stay comfortable and stay together. Now, even though I feel comfortable with my band counting them off and stepping out of the way, if we're playing places like we play the Detroit Jazz Festival every year on the main stage, that's a huge space with all sorts of additional amplification and monitors and setups that defeat some of the acoustic elements. Or we play at the Max and Fisher Music Center like we did last week with Terrence Blanchard. That room is really live, and if you don't have the band set up just right, there are times when I, as the conductor, have to make a decision that things are getting a little loose time-wise, and I have to step in and just set a few beats, set some downbeats, give an indication of the sections we're in so that the band feels comfortable that even though the sound may be getting a little squishy, they understand where the beat is, and we keep the flow going and avoid any train wrecks that could happen. That's the conductor's job to do it. So while you don't want to be in the face of the band as the way you would with a symphony band conducting every beat and in a classical sense, you do want to be prepared to step in when it's necessary, to cue in and out of solos when it's appropriate. Usually I try to leave that to the soloist, and I try to prepare them in rehearsals. We'll talk a little bit about that later, so that I don't have to tell them to move on. They understand when their solo's over, but sometimes you have to do it. To cue backgrounds, and sometimes even just to count a section in after a long pause, just in case someone lost count or there was some distraction in the room that causes you to just give them a 1, 2, 3, boom, boom. Sometimes I also give a little bit of inspiration. You know, the guy who does this more than anybody and really does it well is the great John Clayton, who we had a couple of years ago. He really stepped into the band, and in the dynamic elements of his charts, he really encouraged the band to get a lot out of them with even verbal indications and certainly his body movements that let the band know it's okay to really open up and roar, or to get the band to come way down to absolutely nothing. These are the jobs of a jazz conductor. So you don't want to be in front of the band all the time, but you need to know when you need to be there. Don't feel like you just count them in and step off and stand on the side of the bandstand. That's equally a big a mistake as standing in front of the band with a baton, and it can cause a lot of problems. So keep some of those things in mind, and maybe look back at the video we just did. You kind of see the moments when I interjected and when I stepped back. Right now I want to turn the floor over to our Jazz Studies faculty member, Russ Miller. He's a professor here in Jazz Studies. He's a marvelous saxophonist and arranger, composer. One of the things we pride ourselves here on in the Jazz Studies program is we marry the concept of performance aspects of jazz studies with arranging and compositional aspects for large ensembles and small. We still work with the big band, and in fact our undergraduates and graduates have to write for this ensemble for their graduation recital, and they have to write well, particularly the graduate students and the senior year undergraduate students. Russ Miller is a big part of that. And in addition to writing for their recitals, we have the students write for the guest artists that come in, and solo pieces, various pieces that feature soloists in a more pronounced way than just blowing a couple of improvised choruses in the middle. That's the kind of piece we're going to work with today. It's an arrangement of a wonderful standard called Invitation, but it's arranged by a master arranger, Russ Miller. He's going to talk about how he put this arrangement together, some of the technical aspects, the musical aspects. We're going to take a little bit of a look at the solo section and break that down a little bit, and when all is said and done and we have an understanding of the piece, we're going to do a performance of it for you. So right now, please welcome to the stage and to the internet, Professor Russ Miller.
Thank you, Chris. I'd like to discuss a few elements that go into making an arrangement that help give it a little bit of glue to hold it together. and at the same time provide the arranger with some materials to work with. And one of the most important elements that we have as an arranger is the melodic content of the piece. So what I'd like to do is point out various spots where the melody has been used, how it fits together, how it's been expanded, and what that does in order to give us material to work with. So for starters, I originally conceived of this with a lengthy introduction, but I also wanted a couple of characteristics to it. So there's a vamp section, which is a rhythmic section. The bass and the piano and the drums have a particular pattern they play. It's reinforced later on by the trombones. Then there's a second section, which is the opening part, where I chose to use a rubato woodwind section. And the way this starts out then is that I chose the chord progression from the bridge of the song. This is an AABA form, and since the last couple of chords of the bridge set up the last A section harmonically, I felt it would be useful to use this as an introduction. So we'll play the woodwind introduction, and you'll hear it follows the exact chord progression from the bridge, but it's rewritten slightly. The chords are in order. I alter the melody in order not to give the melody away completely, a la Sammy Nestico, who says the introduction should set the table for what's to come without giving everything away. So here we go, woodwinds playing the introduction. That sets up the very next chord of the vamp, which in this case is the C minor 7.